Holy moly, what a week. What a week. Welcome back. Let's just get right into it. Market pulled back huge on Friday. And in terms of my positions, I'm up on my closed positions, up $2,300. But on my paper positions that are still open, well, my entire portfolio pulled back about $18,000. That's a little misleading. That includes stuff like long positions I'm holding, like stuff that wouldn't count for trading, like just holding SPY, for example. I have a huge position there and I got hit. But I do have a rather large drawdown on some more leveraged positions like Google calls. I think I'm down like $8,700 actual red P&L that's still open, and down about $1,000 in a Microsoft, like a single Microsoft Leap. So we're just figuring things out there. Let's get into a little more detail about what happened, mainly on Friday, how I managed it, and where or what I'm going to do from here. So on Friday, as we know, Trump made his tweet, and I can actually pull up his tweet here. Very strange things are happening in China. They're becoming hostile, and then he goes on to say that we might put in more tariffs. Obviously, the market was very unhappy with that. So at around 7:57 a.m., I'll go right in here, we get the start of a pullback right when Trump tweets. And this is why I'm such a huge advocate of having volume alerts on your chart, especially on S&P 500. Because when news like that comes out, you can't be monitoring every single news outlet, but volume tells a huge story. So as soon as you get a huge volume spike, you get an alert and you're like, okay, I should go check on this. And you immediately see that there is something going on because of how huge the volume is and how intense the selling is. Within 1 minute, I knew there was news, and within 3 minutes, I found out about the news. And I was able to act on it. And so what you can do is you go in here, you add an alert, and you just change it to volume. I like having it above 80,000 on the 1 minute chart, and you just do once per bar. Yeah, once per bar. That way you get it instantly as soon as it hits that 80,000. And yeah, you can immediately figure out, okay, is there something extreme going on in the market? And then it's a lot easier to take trades there. So what did I do when I found out about this that was going on? Well, I immediately saw that and I was like, well, that is really, really not good. So I dumped every single one of my short-term long positions that I had open. Very quickly. So I got out of, I'll give you some examples here. I had a PayPal long going, and I got out of that very quickly. Actually, for profit. Oracle, I got out of Oracle as soon as I saw that, also for a profit. I had already taken partials before, and I can't remember if I had other ones that I closed. Oh yeah, and there was also another Google long that I opened. So I actually got pretty aggressive in here when I saw this dip. I bought the dip on Thursday. I bought 8 contracts, 8 short-dated call contracts out of the money. And I was in profit. This was a good trade until Trump opened his mouth, right? It was pulling back a little bit. I was keeping an eye on it, and then Trump tweeted right in here. And especially because they're short-dated contracts, I needed to get out. Like, this was not going to be a move that I wanted to be in for short-dated out-of-the-money contracts. So I sold 8 contracts, total loss $200. I am so okay with that. Because holding on to this, no bueno. Very no bueno. Now my further out in time contracts, I didn't sell. In hindsight, I could have taken off probably half my position, and I wouldn't have ended up with a current like almost $9,000 drawdown on that larger swing long position. But I'm still okay with where it's at. on the daily chart and on the 30-minute chart, as we can see, Google is going to retest, or it's retesting this bottom trend line. It is the bottom Bollinger. If it breaks through here, it could retest maybe the 50-day moving average down here to 26, which would be really painful. But it's still within the bounds of going up. It's still holding this gap. I'm okay. I have several months at least for my contracts to play out, so I'm not terribly worried there. And I'll get into like how I more broadly feel about the rest of the market a little later in this video. Right, so how did I defend against this too? I'd mentioned that I saw the move. I found out about the news right when it happened. And it was a lot of me, I had a lot of positions open, so I was selling calls, trying to hedge as best I could. But I didn't quite do enough. I did have like small trade in here, shorting Google for this bounce. I made like $100 off that. Drop in the bucket, but you know, trying to capitalize on it a little bit. But I didn't have the intuition yet to like get aggressively short immediately. Obviously, in hindsight, it's really easy to say, "Oh yeah, we should just bought like 100 puts on 1 day to expire, 0 day to expire, SPY at the money, and then made a killing off of it." But I was too busy trying to manage my open positions, and by the time I was done managing those, I had to go to work. So only so much you can do there. This is not my full-time career. As for other things I did, I really wanted to look for stocks that were holding strong during this huge market pullback and see if I could trade some of those. So a little early, but I initially sold. I did some buy rights on NBIS, selling premium, and I did another one at the end of the day. I did some on Bloom Energy as well. And if you look at the daily charts for them, because the 5-minute chart isn't really going to tell you very much from a longer-term technical level, you can see that Bloom Energy, compared to SPY, like, it's still a green candle, you know? Like, sure, it's down slightly from, or it's about the same as what it closed on Thursday, maybe a little higher. That is really strong compared to what the market did. Like, sure, it's a hammered down, whatever, but like compared to the market, that's a pretty dang good sign of strength. And NBIS as well, you can see it's way higher. Like it held more than half the candle of the previous day. That is a really good sign of strength compared to what the rest of the market's doing. So I'm very happy to be in this premium selling position. I'm protected down to a certain point. And yeah, totally fine being in these positions here. Some other positions that I still have open, that I opened earlier in the week, before all this news came out. I have open puts on iron, as in like I sold puts. I'm not long puts. I sold puts, so I'm selling premium down at the 50 level for next week. I think that's a pretty good premium sell. Speaking of iron, we'll talk about Bitcoin in a moment. I also sold bull puts, which looking at this now is not super great. I may end up bag holding a little bit if they get assigned next week. I have AMD puts that got assigned, so I'm now managing 200 shares of AMD, or I will be on Monday, and I have a small day trade going, or not day trade, small swing trade going on CRISP. By small, I mean I have 30 shares with a $1 stop loss, so I'm not very aggressive on this one. Okay, I mentioned Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, as you may or may not have heard, had a massive liquidation event on Friday where it was just sell, stop losses didn't get triggered, there was no liquidity. It was after markets on a Friday, and people got burned really bad. Looking at this on a daily chart, I actually drew these last night, I think, and Bitcoin was around 111,000. I was thinking to myself, I could play this bounce, it could potentially bounce up to the 50-day moving average. That's what this yellow line is. And it already has. Could it bounce further? Maybe. I could totally see this coming up to this like 118, 119,000 level. And so I may buy some IBIT just to play this Bitcoin bounce. This is a massive deleveraging. So everybody who was leveraged in here that had any sort of margin going on is now out. And so there's a lot less leverage going on, and now it's a lot safer to get back in some sense. A lot of people were hurt, but this could bounce back up to the $119,000 level pretty easily, in my opinion, just from looking at the chart standpoint. Now, after it gets here, I would be a little more careful. I'd protect, because this looks like, you know, it could be a head and shoulders pattern there. But regardless, looks like a bounce that you could take or sell some puts down here, whatever this level would be on IBIT. Yeah, I think that's a decent trade too. In terms of where the market's going from here, you see SPY is at right above the 50-day moving average. I'm pretty sure it's going to test this 50-day moving average. I would be shocked if it didn't. So there's room for the market to continue down here, and I'll probably put on a little more hedge when Monday rolls around, depending on where the market opens. If it gaps down, I would be a little worried about getting too aggressive with shorts. But I do think there's room, just from like how much selling there is, for there to be a little more selling continuation. In terms of how low it will go, do I think it'll just sell all the way down? Probably not. I've had 2 days to sleep on it, and more news has come out since then. For example, Mr. Trump tweeted this morning that it will all be fine. Highly respected President Xi had a bad moment. He doesn't want depression for his country, and neither do I. The USA wants to help China, not hurt it. So he's, in some ways, backing off. Like, he's not saying he's backing off, but he doesn't want there to be these tariffs. It's a negotiating tactic. And there's this other article that someone posted that I found about the relationship with Canada, where China will remove tariffs for Canada if Canada scraps their own tariffs. And that's kind of like the stance that seems to be happening. If we remove certain tariffs, they're going to remove certain tariffs, and then everything will be hooray, you know. So it kind of depends on whether Trump will drop those tariffs or not. So we'll see what happens. Could it be another taco trade? Maybe. I do think this market has room to bounce in here. These dips have all been bought. While I am a little concerned because I just look at my portfolio and I feel sad because I've lost money, I think this is a little overblown, and there's at the very least room for some kind of small bounce. With a grain of salt, to be very careful. Futures haven't opened, more news has not really come out. So we'll see what happens when Monday rolls around. Okay, now I do want to share a trade that I am proud of that happened this week. It happened on Thursday on NBIS. I've been trading the stock quite a bit because it has pretty nice volume, pretty nice price action. And here's my trade on Thursday. So I initially entered on the break of the 5-day moving average, and I got out when it had this red candle and it formed this downward sloping trend line. And I got out for about break even. A little paper handy, but not the worst thing in the world in hindsight. It held this giant green candle pretty well. I didn't have to exit at all. But I set an alert on this trend line that I drew, and as soon as it broke that, I bought in. And I didn't buy in for a super large position. I bought in about 80 shares, putting me at about a $50 stop loss based on this. And after it pulled back and then held this downward sloping trend line really well, like this resistance now turned into support, I added 100 shares. So now I'm sitting on 180 shares of NBIS at a very strong support. I took partial profits and protected myself. So I took out 90 shares. I like taking out half my position at 1-to-1 so that I have no risk on the position. as soon as possible. So within less than 5 minutes, I had zero risk on the position. And then I took out profits all the way up and got out literally at the top here for the remaining shares. And within 5 minutes after I'd exited my full position, yeah, it pulled back. And on this trade, I made a total of $260. So I'm extremely pleased with how I traded that, how I added to my position on confirmation, and exiting at an ideal level. Am I always going to be able to pull off perfection like this? No. Was this trade perfect to begin with? No, I could have, held on to more shares for longer. But I am very happy with how I traded this particular setup. All right, to sum it all up about $2,300 on closed P&L. Have a bunch of positions open. Not super worried, but slightly worried. And in a drawdown, finally living up to my name, Drawdown Diaries. So we'll try to manage the drawdown the best we can. I'll keep you guys updated on the position. If not throughout the week, then of course in next week's video. And yeah, catch you later.